Words are about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, presented to you by the ad-free shows and the Podcast Heat Networks. I'm John Alba. That's the broken one, the woken one, the spoken one himself, Mr. Matt Hardy. What's going on, brother? Coming to us once again from the Hardy compound, it would appear, huh?
Yes, I am. Doing great. Enjoying being at the Hardy compound. I never want to leave this place. I've decided when I am dead, they're going to bury my carcass here. You know, we'll rot in the
have you
ground.
like formally decided that?
I did just now, I think.
Okay.
I just now officially stated that and have made that decision. Yeah, it's concrete though. So yeah, it's been good, man. It's warming up. It feels nice outside. The last few days, it's been almost 70 degrees. It's been 65, 70 degrees. And now whenever I go out to the pool, I literally just swim around for like probably 20, 25 minutes. And the kids go with me and they'll like jump in the shallow. And Max will actually swim with me some, and then we'll get in the hot tub. So it's a little bit of a change, but it's been very enjoyable. And I do springtime / into summer is my favorite time of the year. So excited about that. Excited this change is coming and we're here now.
He changes with the seasons, but one thing that's consistent, if you're an adfreeshows.com subscriber, you get early access and live tapings to the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Kelly Cox is here. Lindsay's here.
Kelly?
Josh Fields is here.
What up, Josh?
This is a good day here to be part of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy audience. We have had a lot of buzz in the last week as part of our greatest of all time tournament, and we're going to get to not the Elite Eight, but the Extreme 8 on this week's edition of the podcast.
Correct.
Kind of exciting, right?
8, yeah. I am excited. I legitimately, I'm excited to hear the results. And if there's anybody out there, whenever we start talking about a match before John opens the letter and gives away the award and announces who the winner is, going to the next round, I want each and every one of you top guys and top gals to try and post. Tell me who you think's going to take it. Who's going to win this?
Yes, we definitely would love your participation. We got great numbers of participation for the Sweet 16, so I can only imagine what the Extreme 8 is going to look like. Before we get into any of that, Matt, I do want to hit on a couple relevant news items, as we always do here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. As we tape this, AEW is doing some big business in Boston. I think we all know what's coming here, the debut of Mercedes Monae on AEW television. What do you think Mercedes is going to be bringing to the table for AEW?
Mercedes is going to be bringing a lot of star power. I mean, she was a big star on WWE TV, which is a big deal. WWE TV is the most powerful professional wrestling television there's ever been in history. So if you've been a big star on WWE TV, that gives you lots of equity. So her coming to AEW, it's different from like a Will Ospreay or an Okata, someone that's more of an international name that people that follow international wrestling, people that are more diehard pro wrestling fans overall, they love and they adore these people. But Sasha Mercedes, she is someone that the casual fans know a lot more. And when I say casual fans, again, it's just people that don't always watch wrestling. People that like watch wrestling as they're passing by the TV. Oh, here's some wrestling on. Oh, what is this girl's name? This girl's name is Mercedes Monae. This is Sasha Banks. They're going to know her. And I think those casual eyeballs are very important to get on your product. And she is going to assist in getting those casual eyeballs and more general wrestling fans to watch your programming.
What do you think stands out about her that makes her so appealing to a wider audience?
She's got a very unique attitude. She's got a very unique demeanor. I think Mercedes is extremely confident. I think she is good and she knows she's good. She's very unique in the way she does things in the ring. And she just has this presence and this aura about her where when you see her, you believe in her. And she really is. She's someone who connects with fans, both female and male fans. She actually connects with them. She has that it factor that it takes to be successful in pro wrestling.
I think as an in-ring talent, she's one of the greatest, not just women's wrestlers, but I think she's one of the greatest wrestlers of her generation. I think that Mercedes' ability to sell believably is just such a crucial foundation to her matches, and it does so much for her opponents, and then eventually for when she hits her comebacks in her matches as a babyface or as a heel. She's just such a good shit talker, for lack of a better term. I think she's one of the most dynamic performers in the world, Matt. And I mean, what do you think she does for the women's division specifically in AEW?
automatically elevates it. I mean, she ups the equity of the AEW women's division just by being in it.
Strong statement there from the Extreme One. I'm excited to see what she does for the company. You mentioned Okada. He debuted officially last week as a member of the Elite. I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming. Kenny Omega, Ixnade, Hangman Page suspended by the Elite, and Okada coming in as a heel in AEW, working with the Bucks of Youth. What do you think of that decision there, positioning him like that? You know, as you alluded to, he came in as this big international star, right. But now immediately top of the card on the bad guy side of the equation.
I'm intrigued, and it's a good intrigue. I don't know Okada a lot. The few times I've met him, I've liked him a lot. He seems very nice. The Bucks speak very highly of him, right? So he's a big star. There's no doubts about that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Extremely talented individual. So I'm very excited to see his impact on AEW, especially as the AEW audience and people outside of the international wrestling bubble really get to learn who Okada is and really get to see how talented he is and get to see him in action and learn what he's about, what makes him tick. I think that's going to be very beneficial. And I think pairing him with the Bucks is a good deal. It's something where everybody feels comfortable. It'll make him feel comfortable. They should gel good because they've been friends for many, many years. And it's going to be an intriguing thing. I'm looking forward to watching it and following it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how long Okada is in that position, because it's very unorthodox for him. He hasn't been a heel in a really long time. And that's never a bad thing, right? Like being forced to step outside of the comfort zone, try something totally different. I feel like that's something that sets you up for a degree of success too. And you get a cameo.
Oh, guacamole from scratch? Okay, I'm going to try it. No, okay. I was just gifted by Queen Rebecca some guacamole that she made from scratch.
Ooh,
avocado. So I'm going to try this.
Let's try it. Let's get a review on air.
Wonderful,
dude! I love a good guac.
Oh my god, I'm obsessed with it. You know who's really obsessed with it recently? Wolfie. Wolfie is in love with guacamole. Yeah,
Wolfie loves a good guac, huh? I love a good guac. The creaminess of the avocado.
Oh my god,
that's what's up.
She's really good too. She's really good. I think you're really good with this as well, John. It's like the flavors that she puts into her food. You know, like she gives it like there's such a little underlying salt taste in this, and there's almost like a little buzz of like pepper, but it kind of tastes sweet, which is so nice. Oh, it's
flavor. If you are cooking and your food's just not jam packed with flavor, what is the point of even cooking?
Right? Why are we living?
Why are we living? What is the point?
Right.
The meaning of life is flavor. But anyway, as I was saying, you know, it's kind of stepping outside of the comfort zone for Okada. Being a heel here, coming over to the United States. I mean, what is it like as a wrestler when you're challenged to step outside of a role that you're very adept to and consistent with, and having to do something different, not even by your own volition necessarily?
I think personally, it gives you career longevity. If you can go in a different direction, you can do something new, and if you can establish it and get it over, it can help you have career longevity. Because one thing that is so similar about actors and wrestlers is there are people who are playing a specific part, right? And the actors play a part in a show for, you know, if you're a show, say you're a TV series, a good run is 5 seasons, is what people that are actors have told me. If you have 5 seasons, it was a success, right? Not a lot of people get 5 seasons, but if you have 5 seasons, it was a success. But after those 5 seasons are over, then if you do another show, you play another character, and you're, you know, kind of forced to. If you're wrestling and you are the same character through 20 seasons, through 25 seasons, it can get old pretty quick. So it's very important to be able to reinvent yourself. It's very important to be able to evolve and constantly change. And that allows you to go back to things in the past that was over when people actually miss it because it's been gone for so long, when they bereave it and they want to see it again. So I think this is good for Okada. I think it's going to help give him career longevity. And I also think it as an artist, as someone who's creative, I think it's very cathartic to be able to go out and do something that you don't typically do.
What's the one match you're most looking forward to seeing Okada have in AEW?
I mean, just Will Ospreay is so incredible. I mean, that's a match that stands out. I mean, he's totally incredible. You know, it's like whoever you put him in the ring with, he just creates this magical realm of wrestling that, you know, is just unprecedented nowadays. I would love to see Okada versus some of the newer guys too. I would love to see an Okada. I'd love to see Okada and Darby. I would love to see Okada and MJF, Okada and Jungle Boy maybe down the road. There's a bunch of people I'd like to see him with. Some of the younger guys. I feel like he's such a big international star. It would elevate these other people on an international level more than just North American eyeballs.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You know, I mean, clearly the match that is being built to eventually, once he's healthy, will be doing Okada Omega again.
Yeah.
And I do genuinely believe that Okada Omega, either in the US or in AEW, is still one of the biggest matches left on the table. It's this iconic lore of matches that hasn't been done in 5 years. So adding to that and putting it in front of a more prominent North American audience, I think is something that would be very special. But you know who I'm going to say. I mean, I think Orange Cassidy and Okada would make magic together.
No, same. I'm here for it. Yeah, Orange Cassidy and Okada, yeah, I'm here for it.
They would make magic together. So that is a match I would like to see for sure. John Moxley and Okada would be fantastic too. So
yeah, no, I mean, anybody you pair him with, it's going to be a great match. And just like you said, Orange Cassidy, a very polarizing individual, but I'm here for it, man. I'm a believer of Orange Cassidy, and I'm here for it.
A good one from Josh says Okada and Malachi Black would be incredible. That's a match I'd be all about seeing. Rainmaker versus that freaking kick to the jaw. My goodness, it's so good. Pinpoint. Matt, we did get a lot of inquiries because you did talk about it last week about your contract status. Is there anything else you want to add on that front?
Nothing really new. No updates to be given. Just still conversing. Still in the midst of negotiation. Figure out what's going on. So no real updates on that. But thank you guys for asking and giving a shit.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did. A lot of people had a lot of comments that they wanted to send your way some positive. I know you expressed some appreciation too. You posted that video of you after the injury with Sammy, how you were right back on TV thanking the fans the next week. I know that meant a lot to you to be able to do that back then.
It did. It did. It was very cool. That was the 3 days after.
Wow. Damn. Man, that whole COVID year just was a whirlwind. Like we just passed, I think it was yesterday as we taped this, was the 4-year anniversary of like the day the world shut down. And I cannot believe that we are at this point now. Just
it was like the 11th or 12th, right? What was it? Was it the 12th?
Today's the 13th.
13th. Yeah. What day was it? The 12th?
It was like the mix between the 11th and the 12th. It was like those 2 days were.
Well, I remember getting calls because I talked to the Bucks and Jericho. They were in Utah the week before we were going to debut. I was going to debut, and Brody Lee was going to debut in Rochester, New York, right? And then, like 3/4 of the way through the show or whatever, they heard that like things were shutting down. Rochester was going to be shut down. They weren't going to be able to do it there next week. And and as time went on, they heard like as the night progressed that like this is shutting down and this is shutting down and like everything and they found out like within 24 hours that like everything was going to close down for the immediate future. And it was wild, and then everyone was scrambling to figure out what was going to happen or what we were going to do. There were even people thinking like, okay, well, maybe things closed down for like 4 or 5 days and we're able to get back in there next week, for Dynamite or whatever. So it was an extremely crazy time period and very stressful as well.
We talked about that in our Stadium Stampede episode. If you go back in the archives, extremehardy.com, we spent about 30 minutes talking just about your debut there in the pandemic. Maybe one time we'll do a deeper dive into that because I'm just sure that time period was crazy. But yeah, amazing. 4 years later that we're here. But thankfully we're mostly on the other side of that stuff. Kelly saying Omega, Danielson, Jay White, Ospreay, Okada, the AEW roster is so deep. That it certainly is. Depth is not of concern for AEW. That is one thing for certain. It's just now it's getting those guys all to a certain level where they are definitive, defined top stars week in and week out on your programming. So we'll see if they can get to that. All right, Matt, we are headed to the Extreme 8 of the greatest of all time tournament. Before we can dive into that, you know what I got to ask? Please hit us with that Matt fact.
Matt fact. Matt doesn't mind eating sushi with his hands.
So screw the chopsticks. We're just picking it up, popping it in our
mouth. Chopsticks are optional. You know, sometimes I eat with chopsticks, and I'm okay not eating with chopsticks. If we get our food and I'm hungry, I will definitely start eating with my hands, and I do not mind it one bit. I'm from the South. Maxwell is not here, Wolfgang. Thank you.
Are the kids pickers with their hands?
Well, sometimes if I'm with the kids, I'll eat with chopsticks because they want to try and eat with chopsticks, and they do. Maxwell can eat with chopsticks pretty good. Wolfie is still kind of learning. They're not big. Like Wolfie sometimes eats sushi. Maxwell is big on like having avocado. He's just getting used to like having more fish. He would like avocado and cucumber rolls, but like tuna now he's pretty good with. He can have like more basic stuff. He likes that. You know, sometimes some of the stuff that's a little more extravagant, you know, they're a little sensitive or weird about trying because they might freak them out. They're just getting to that point where they all like salmon now, which is wild. Which for a while they didn't, but they're all for salmon now, all of them.
You gotta show them my salmon. My salmon's the real deal. That's
boy, they just ate so Barty hated salmon and he hated fish before. So just a few days ago, Rebecca cooked salmon and she seasoned it up. It was amazing. It was so good, so flavorful. And she put it on Barty's plate. She said, "Oh, here you go. Here's chicken." He's go, "Okay." He says, "This is the best chicken ever. It's so good, Mama. I love it. This is the best chicken ever." And then like they were saying like, both Maxwell and Wolfie said, "Oh my God, this salmon is so good." And he said, "But it's chicken." He said, "Oh, yours is chicken. Yours is chicken." They like almost stooged it off. And then by the end, he realized it was salmon. So now he's okay with eating salmon.
Okay,
so,
it worked. Reverse psychology. It worked on him. Chris North saying a hand roll was the original fish taco anyway, so that's fine. That's why you can eat it with your.
There you have it. Yeah, I'm all about hand foods. You know, burgers, tacos,
the finger foods.
Like finger foods.
I got you. Josh Henney saying, "Holy moly, I almost missed the words being spoken." No, we're glad.
There you have it.
I sent you that new barbecue place you got to check out en route to the airport.
I can't wait now. Yeah. Literally, it's like 2 miles off the route to the airport when you go around the city. There.
It's a damn good barbecue in North Carolina, so you're gonna have to check that out there. Lindsay says she wants some guac. Lindsay, you're in Baltimore. You got that Jimmy's Famous Seafood and all those great crab cake places. You're in a good spot. Don't worry about that.
There's some of the best grilled seafood in the business.
In all the business, baby. All right, Matt. let's hit on some good stuff here. You know,
I'm excited to hear these results because there's a lot of things I really am not sure which way they're going.
I've not told you for everyone. I have not told Matt the results here. Matt does not know who won what yet.
Yes, I am of the old school mindset. You know, like fuck spoilers. I don't want to know. Like I want to be surprised. I want to get a genuine reaction. I want to enjoy this tournament as it goes through. I don't want to know who wins and who loses until it's done and said, and we're discussing it, talking about
the sheets. Did not stooge off the results for this one for you.
Thank God. Thank God nobody leaked the results of this damn tournament.
Well, it would have been pretty easy to find the source of the leaks. So if that had happened.
Well, you're right.
Hey, one team, I meant to ask you about this. One team that's not in the greatest of all time tournament, the U.S. Express, which is going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't know how much they were on your radar, but do you have any thoughts on that? I thought it's a nice gesture for Mr. Rotundo to go into the Hall of Fame this year. What do you think?
I like Mike Rotundo a lot. Like I worked with him when he was a producer. He was one of my earliest matches in 1994, Matt Hardy versus IRS. So I've got to know him over the years. Obviously, I worked with him at WWE when he was a producer. I knew him because he was Bray's dad. And it's one of those things where I feel like too, like Bray also was very, very close with Barry. So it feels like this has a big Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda fill into it too, which I'm very glad this is happening because it's something we can address as well during this and whenever they're inducted to the Hall of Fame. But yeah, man, they were a great tag team, and I think it's a move that makes sense.
Do you know what theme song the U.S. Express came out to? What their entrance music was at WrestleMania 1?
Oh my God, I'm not sure. You probably you got me on this one.
It was Born in the USA.
Oh, actually, you tweeted that or something, right? You tweeted or posted about that. I do remember seeing that. Now
yeah, they came out to Born in the USA. Now, of course, that was probably before Vince realized you got to pay licensing fees and stuff for that to broadcast it. But yeah, you know,
I mean, that was it. That was in what year, John?
1984.
1984. Paulie Heyman in the late 90s still hadn't figured out yet. It was still playing the show.
Another Hall of Famer in his own right. Yeah,
another Hall of Famer, right?
Listen,
and now WWE, they have to play all generic music whenever there's anything.
Right. You just hear widdly guitar tracks over it, and yeah, you know, weird song for them to come out to, given its meaning. But yeah, I mean, 1984, Born in the USA was the biggest song in the world, so. Them coming out to
it. And you know what? Like I know Born in the USA isn't.
It's not what you think it's about.
Yeah, it's not what you think it's about, but it just has such a pro-American feel to it. You know, and people just people are proud of Born in the USA. Like I did it one time. I put it on something. You know, like Born in the USA. Yeah. I'm an American, America, you know, and I dig America. I'm very happy I'm here and I love America.
Well, what I love about Born in the USA is, you know, people are like, it's not a patriotic song. It's about war veterans being mistreated. But what I love about it is it challenges our country to be better. It says treat the people to be better. And that, Matt, to me, that's like the ultimate definition of patriotism, is looking at the misjustices in your country and being like, how can we be better? How can we be better people together? And I think
that's also like a defining quality of America too.
Sure, absolutely. Or it should be, at least for yeah. And also US Express did come out to Real American as well, as Chris pointed out.
Yeah.
So before Hogan did. So they were trying to figure things out, and eventually they did. But anyway, let's get to this tournament. I just wanted to get that in about the US Express because I know you had a lot of fondness for Mike Rotunda.
Yeah.
So we had 8 matchups, 16 teams. And I had to say this like 20 times because everyone was freaking out, Matt. They're like, how could FTR be a 16 seed? How could the Midnight Express only be a 10 seed? Guys, it was randomized.
The seedings are randomized.
It was randomized. It was random.
AI selected them.
That's right. Literally. I mean, I literally threw it through a generator and they were randomly picked. So that did not mean that Matt preferred FTR to LOD or anything of that nature. It was completely random. And for the point of that, too, is to give us really intriguing matchups that we weren't expecting to get in the first place. But now that you've kind of had a week to marinate in your picks and who you put in this tournament, are there any that you're regretting leaving out? Are you content with the 16 teams that you picked? A lot of people in the comments were like, where's Harlem Heat? You know, the Bushwhackers came up a few times from people, a lot of fondness for them. There were some people saying, hey, you know, you kind of ignored some teams from like the 70s and the early 80s that laid the groundwork. Any thoughts there?
No, I'm content.
Okay.
I mean, it was only 16 teams. You can only pick so many in 16 teams, and I tried to use the best criteria I could possibly use. And you know, teams that have had success over different companies, you know, different platforms in different capacities, you know, considering their, you know, how their title, their title records and whatnot, just the success that they have found overall throughout the entire wrestling industry. That's what I was basing it off of, and I was happy about it.
Yeah, the only one that I was like I could make an argument for Harlem Heat to be in that, because I think Harlem Heat were a really impactful tag team and obviously launched Booker to huge stardom. But
no doubt,
yeah, I think your list was pretty good, honestly. So I had no qualms about it, and I thought the 16 teams you picked were good, and we got some great matchups out of it. Our number 1 versus number 16 matchup was the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, versus FTR. Now, Matt, I have not told you the results for any of these again. Before I share them with you, I want to pick your brain on them one more time. Where do you think this one was going to go when you heard about this matchup, FTR versus the Legion of Doom?
I still feel like the majority of wrestling fans consider LOD the top tag team in the industry. And I think that's going to stand for a while, just because they were so impactful. They were the first tag team that was like a major draw. People talk about the reactions they would get, the Road Warriors pop. So I definitely, I feel like and this sucks. I wish this wasn't a first round match because FTR is just tremendous. They've really come into their own. They come into their own during AEW television and whatnot. So I almost wish this hadn't have been a first round match because you have to lose one of the biggest players in this tournament, obviously. But I feel like the fans that voted on this are going to vote LOD, and I feel like LOD, the Road Warriors, are the team who won this.
What about recency bias? FTR is the most prominent tag team in the business right now. Do you think that could have maybe worked in their favor at all?
It could have, and I know that's something you suggested, and I think so. But also something I believe is that people look back at the past with more fondness and more greatness than they do the future, than they do the present. And possibly the future going forward. So I think that worked against them in some ways. There are going to be some people say like, hell yeah, FTR, they would wrestle circles around the Road Warriors, which is true. That is an absolute accurate statement. If you compare them via who is the best wrestling tag team between those two, the pure basic wrestling, like FTR blows them away. They're going to blow most tag teams away. But when you think about just like star power and you think about greatness as a tag team, there's such a fondness with the Road Warriors. It's going to be hard to defeat them.
Sure. There's some comments from the top guys and top gals saying love FTR, but LOD has it. Chris saying LOD by fan vote, very tough matchup for FTR. Yes. Listen, I think, as I said to you last week, 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to look back at FTR and be like, this truly was one of the greatest tag teams to ever do it. And I think just when 100%. You go against LOD, the Road Warriors, whatever you want to call them, it's a really, really tough matchup for them. So, Matt, your winners of this first round matchup, the number 1 versus number 16 seed, with 68% of the vote to 32%, moving on to the Extreme 8, the number 1 seeded Road Warriors.
All right. Okay.
What do you think of that margin? 68% to 32%. I was very surprised by that margin.
That's about what I would have guessed.
Really?
But I could have been wrong. That's what I would have guessed. Yeah.
Interesting. So early voting trends, and we had thousands of votes for this, so I'm so glad that we have a good sample size here. Early voting trends, FTR was out in front for like the first day, pretty significantly. And then all of a sudden...
You know why? Because the most diehard fans, wrestling fans that are online on the internet, they voted first. That's why.
Very possible. Very possible. That's good point. Chris saying, you can't wrestle when you get your head clotheslined off 0.3 seconds into the match. So that's a good point about LOD. We got Bobby in here saying, well, hell, everyone.
Well, hell, Bobby.
What would he have to say, Mr. Layfield, about the APA being left off this bracket?
I think he'd be okay with it. I think he'd say, okay, well, if it was 20 or 32, I'd be upset if I wasn't in there, but well, hell, I'm all right.
I think he'd call it a tapestry, honestly.
Well, he might call it a tapestry.
Hey, APA, we're a badass team. Love the APA. So
yes,
I'm always going to give love to the APA. Okay, so FTR is moving on in this tournament here.
Road Warriors.
I'm sorry, Road Warriors.
Yep.
I misspoke. Thank you. Road Warriors moving on, 68% of the vote, wide margin. Again, a little surprised by that margin personally, but nonetheless, they are heading on to the next round, and they're going to face the winners of our tightest matchup, which was the number 8 seeded Edge and Christian versus the number 9 seeded Usos. You and I last week when we talked about this matchup, Matt, we were like agonizing over it. And this matchup, like I said, we got thousands of votes. This one was decided by the closest margin, just 59 votes decided this winner. So this one really came down. See, Matt, every vote does matter. Every vote matters. So now that you've had a week to marinate in this one, Usos, Edge and Christian, 2 very different teams in terms of their legacies, but connected in so many ways. Who do you think came away with this one?
I think I said this last week. If we talked about a prediction, I think I said the Usos. And I have a feeling because the Usos had been a tag team for so long until they just recently started enjoying a single success, both of them. I feel like the Usos are going to have taken this one by that 59 votes, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like the Usos won. And the reason being, because we've said this, like Edge and Christian were extremely impactful during their time together. They did some historic things. They did some groundbreaking things. but also their run as an official tag team on the highest level wasn't for that long, and it was only in WWE. You know, so it's going to be interesting to see this results, but I'm going to go with the Usos.
Yeah, it's that question of impact versus longevity, and no doubting the impact of Edge and Christian as characters. They brought a totally different edge to tag team wrestling than what was being seen at the time. They're in my opinion, one of the first truly successful comedy tag teams. Like, you had the Bushwhackers, who were a comedy tag team, but they were at a certain level on the card, right? Edge and Christian were top tier players. They were main event caliber players as a comedy tag team. And I thought that was really, really interesting as far as their legacy. The Usos, the longest reigning tag champions of all time, just became the first tag team to main event WrestleMania for the tag team championships. And they went into this against Edge and Christian. A lot of our top guys, top gals said they went with Edge and Christian. Chris North saying, I'm an ENC guy, but
it's
looking oozy, he said. Well, Matt Hardy, the winners of the 8-9 matchup, moving on to face the Road Warriors in round 1 by a margin of 59 votes. Edge and Christian.
Oh, look at that. There you have it. ENC pulled it out. All right, good for them. Good for them.
I will be very honest here, and I respect the will of the voters, but I think the voters got this one wrong. I really do.
I don't know.
I really do. And I love Edge and Christian. You know I love Edge and Christian.
I don't think the voters can get it wrong. I mean, if you win the vote, you win the vote.
No,
they wanted ENC, so ENC is the team they choose, so they move ahead. Congrats, guys, and I respect the hell of that. Whoever you go for, go hard, vote for them, and I'm cool with that too. I'm surprised personally. You know, as you said too, but yeah, I definitely I respect the will of the voters. Thank you for voting.
Josh says nostalgia won that one, and I think that's very possible, and that's going to be part of this whole tournament here.
It is.
I don't know, man. I just look at the Usos. Here was my argument, because we talked about this in my Patreon Discord, wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com. We debated this heavily at length recently this week. The Usos found longevity and success in an era where Vince put no equity whatsoever into tag team wrestling. And yet they managed to become a standout act to the point where they eventually headlined WrestleMania. Whereas Edge and Christian were part of the tag division when it was at its hottest and loaded with teams. And you could say there's credibility for them standing out and being the top team in that.
Well, I would like to add, I think the tag team scene got hotter when you had Too Cool, you had the Hardys, you had Edge and Christian, you had the Dudley. And once we all started doing stuff, that's where Vince was kind of forced to push it. I think you had the Outlaws, which were a big deal, but like there hadn't been a ton of stuff done with the tag team division until like we started having these crazy matches and these ladder matches and table matches and TLC matches. And I think that was one of the things that boosted it. So I also think they came into a tag team division when it was not very relevant, and they made it hot. They made it into something that drew money.
Yeah, and that's a fair argument to make too. But I just think there's a lot to be said about the longevity of the Usos, and then being positioned in the top storyline, and I mean one of the top storylines in company history, in the Bloodline storyline. That definitely adds their equity into the equation here. Chris saying those TLC teams forced the tag division to be relevant, which I think that's the point you're kind of making.
Yeah.
And definitely that's more than fair. So our first Extreme 8 matchup will be the Road Warriors versus Edge and Christian.
Wow, look at that.
Let's break it down, Matt.
That's gonna be very interesting. So what are you thinking here? This is gonna be interesting. I almost feel like, because both teams, there's a lot of nostalgia for both teams, because both teams are viewed as great teams that were groundbreakers, right? But I think Edge and Christian have more fans. I feel like they have a better chance of defeating the Road Warriors than they did the Usos. That's me personally. Because I think people are going to look like Edge and Christian. If they would have ended up in a match with the Road Warriors that was a TLC match, or that was a ladder match, or was, you know, some sort of different stipulation or whatever, then they would have the advantage. But they are both very beloved, both of these tag teams, and people look back at them with very fond memories, and they were both great and on different levels, you know, for their period. So yeah, this is going to be an extremely interesting matchup. I mean, if you look at it, it would be a hell of a match, because you'd have the LOD, they would come down to just decimate these guys. And then you'd have Edge and Christian with their sneaky ass tactics, doing whatever they had to do to try and like circumvent the Road Warriors' power and their power moves, and like get them down on the mat and work them over. And they would try and beat them in the sneakiest and hillish way possible. So yes, this is a match that's going to be very, very interesting, which could go either way. But I think personally, I think Edge and Christian have a better chance of winning this one than they did against the Usos.
As far as caliber performers, Edge and Christian are by far and away winners in this category. Two individual main event talents that were part of this tag team. But again, longevity comes into the equation here. Road Warriors were a tag team for a long time. They dominated several different territories. As we talked about last week, the Road Warrior pop was unreal and different rather than anything else in the spectrum at the time. What would you take, Matt? Would you take a Road Warrior pop or a 5-second pose? For the benefit of those with flash photography, of course.
Sure. I might take that Road Warrior pop.
Okay. For the benefit of those watching the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, could I get a Matt Hardy 5-second pose here real quick?
Sure.
What a great bit that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Let's see here. Chris North saying, do ENC get to use chairs in this matchup?
I say yeah.
Okay. They're heels.
They're heels. I say yeah. If I was booking ENC versus the Road Warriors, I would definitely have ENC utilize their mastery of the chairs. I would have them do some underhanding tactics.
For sure. I would see that. Okay, so Edge and Christian versus the Road Warriors. You have any predictions? Who you rolling with there? Who do you think's going to come out the winner in this?
I think Edge and Christian can win this one.
Okay.
It's funny, the Usos, I thought, with their longevity and like their modern, being so modern and so hot currently, I thought they would almost get the call, so it was close, which is cool. But like, I think Edge and Christian can overcome the Road Warriors.
Okay. Let us know, guys, top gals, if you're watching, who you think is going to come out in these matchups. Let's go to the other matchup in this side of the bracket, which was the number 4 New Age Outlaws versus the Dudley Boyz, who were the 13th seed. How do you think this one played out?
I think we're going to get a replay of No Way Out 2000, where the Dudleys defeat the New Age Outlaws. And I think they beat them by a pretty decent margin as well. The Dudleys, the most decorated tag team title lineage in the history of pro wrestling right now. I think the Dudleys took this one pretty strongly.
Yeah, this one was one of our bigger blowouts that we had in this tournament. Lindsay saying my boy Road Dogg needs to win this for the Outlaws. Bobby saying the Outlaws as well. Listen, there's no denying that Oh You Didn't Know was over like Rover. It was a big deal. And those crowds got up huge for any time the Outlaws came out. But you know what was even more over than Oh You Didn't Know, Matt Hardy?
Yes, Devon, get the tables.
Devon, get the tables, and appropriately, your winners of this matchup by a margin of 84.3% to 15.7%, the Dudley Boyz, Team 3D. Not even close in this one, and I don't think that's out of disrespect to the Outlaws, but rather, Matt, how highly some people think of the Dudleys.
No doubt. I mean, the Dudleys are going to go down as one of the top teams in pro wrestling history. There's a lot of people that hold them in very high regard as the greatest tag team ever, and it's really hard to dispute that.
Well, they're going to have to go through this tournament to determine if they're the greatest of all time. The GOAT.
The GOAT.
If they can actually win.
I almost, if you don't mind me jumping in here one
Please.
second, John, I want to share a story, and I may have told you this before, but one of the biggest reactions, people were speaking about Road Dogg, and I heard, I know the top guys, top gals here, they love the Road Dogg. Road Dogg had his pod, right? Oh, you didn't know, but myself and Jeff, the loudest crowd that I really can actually remember, just it's just so vivid. The loudest crowd I remember being in front of was on a TV show. I feel like it was a Raw in Chicago, Illinois, in Rosemont Arena, and it was myself and Jeff versus Road Dogg and X-Pac, and it was myself and Road Dogg starting. And I remember we got in there, and the crowd was just, everybody was on their feet. It was so loud. People were chanting, doing stuff, and I saw Road Dogg over there talking, and I didn't know if he was just like trash talking or whatever, but I think he was trying to cause something. I feel like he was saying like, but lock up, and I was like. And I remember I had to like step in closer. I said, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Whatever. Like it was, I mean, we were probably 7 feet away, and he was like trying to call an audible to like change things a little bit because the crowd was so loud, but it was so loud. I couldn't hear him, and he was saying it loud, which was crazy. And I'll never forget. I vividly remember just how loud that crowd was and being blown away about like, oh my God, this is the greatest crowd I've ever been in front of.
It was almost, as we tape this on the 13th, it was almost 24 years ago today. In fact,
okay,
it was March 30th, 2000. It was a tag team championship tournament. In fact, a #1 contendership tournament, which, by the way, I think we need more of those in pro wrestling. I'm all about tournaments to crown #1 contenders. I think that adds a lot of stakes. So I'm a big fan of those. And it was you and Jeff versus DX, the Road Dogg, Jesse James, and X-Pac at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont on a Monday Night Raw.
There you have it.
Your recall's pretty good, my friend. So yeah, that's your winner there. The Dudleys. A lot of our top guys a little surprised by that one. People not expecting that, but yeah, pretty wide variety.
Yeah.
Kelly saying Hawk and Animal aren't selling any chair shots.
that is true. There would be that. Oh my God. Can you imagine though, if someone like, I would love to be a booker in 2024 with like Prime Road Warriors and be able to put them in positions to no sell stuff. Like, oh my God, there would be some amazing stuff there. Like even a couple of things that Sting did, but like have a Prime Road Warriors thing and have them no sell shit. Like, oh my God,
that would be amazing.
People would go ape shit for it.
So the question becomes, who are the Dudleys facing? Well, they're facing the winner of the #5 Young Bucks versus the #12 Rock and Roll Express. One of those matchups.
Wow, this is a toss up too.
Yeah, this matchup generated a lot of talk online about generational gaps, and we talked before how recency bias might have given FTR or the Usos a little more juice, but in their cases it did not. So would the Young Bucks benefit from that against a team, the Rock and Roll Express, widely considered to be one of the most influential teams ever? Who do you think came out on top in this matchup?
Oh, we are just coming off of the Young Bucks main eventing Sting's final match and turning in a hell of a performance, right? And these are the guys that started AEW, so that also, kind of leans on them quite a bit too, as far as their legacy and, their impact on the pro wrestling business. So I feel like in this match, I'm going to have to look at Ricky Morton and say, Ricky, I'm sorry. I love you. And I'm going to have to hit him with a double super kick by the Young Bucks. And I'm afraid it's going to be the Bucks defeating the Rock and Roll Express.
Not, we're sorry, we hate you. We're not sorry, we hate you.
Right.
Well, by a margin of 57.5% to 42.5%, so a little bit of a closer vote. It was determined by a little over 250 votes or so. The winners of the Young Bucks and Rock and Roll Express matchup moving on to face the Dudley Boys in the Extreme 8, the #5 Young Bucks.
Okay.
So the Young Bucks take down one of the greatest teams to ever do it in the Rock and Roll Express. And now, Matt, a matchup that is tearing at your heart. Your old pals, the Dudleys, who you go back with and changed wrestling history with, versus your current best pals in pro wrestling, the Young Bucks. Dudley's #13, Young Bucks #5. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Oh boy. We're gonna have another Usos Edge and Christian contest here, no doubt. This is gonna be tight, especially considering the fact that people did give the Young Bucks the win over the Rock and Roll Express. This is gonna be really tight. But I also think because the Dudleys are the Dudleys, they're the most decorated tag team in pro wrestling history. They're going to be very hard to beat. I almost got to say, during this scenario, there's probably going to be Nick Jackson loads up the kick, goes to kick Bubba. He spins him around. He hits Matt, sells back into the 3D. The Dudleys get the 1, 2, 3 and pick up the win.
Okay, so that's how you think it would play out in a booking scenario. That's interesting. Now, these teams have had a match before.
They have.
They have. It was in TNA specifically is the one that I'm looking for right now. I'm trying to find the exact date of it, but it was at one of those old TNA one night only gimmicks that they used to do. They did a tag team tournament matchup.
Yeah.
With them, and let's see, I'm almost there. Using your favorite thing, cage match. Let's see. I've got. If anyone can help me out here, that'd be great. But they ended up having a matchup, and this is, of course, when the Young Bucks were much younger. They were truly bucks of youth, as generation
the younger Bucks.
The younger Bucks. And I'll tell you, man, I think this is going to be one that is going to polarize a lot of people. And you're right. Today, they would have a phenomenal match. I mean, I really think if we got like prime Dudleys or even older Dudleys versus the Young Bucks, I really think they could go out there and put together a special bout. Because the Young Bucks selling those tables, man, that like fits right into their gimmick, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's right up their alley, no doubt. And they've also wrestled a couple times on the Indies because I do know that they have both been coined as winners in this match. They've both been labeled as winners in the match. The Dudleys have beat the Bucks, and the Bucks have beat the Dudleys. So it is going to be really interesting to see how this turns out tomorrow. It's going to be very, very close, or this next week, this next episode, in the Extreme 8.
Trying to find their full results page, but I'm having a hard time pulling it up right now, so I do apologize here. Chris saying, who takes the 3D and how many times does Devon get kicked because Bubba's not taking that shit?
No, Bubba will take the kicks. It'll take 5 to get him down. I mean, 5 to get him down. He's gonna like make sure he sells at the appropriate rate, though.
I don't know if Bubba's taking a Meltzer driver per se, but I could see him taking that. Okay, so we'll see what happens with that one. I think that's going to be a really tight vote.
Sometimes we would hit Bubba with a chair, and he would stagger and say, bring another. I mean, he worked the big man gimmick, brother. He knew how to work his gimmick.
He did. Side question for Bobby here. In their prime, the Outsiders versus New Age Outlaws, who wins?
Ooh, that'd have been a hell of a matchup. I would have enjoyed the shit out of that because you have a bunch of click guys, right?
Yeah, inter-click warfare.
Yeah, click warfare. I would say in their prime, if you get Kevin Nash and Scott Hall right after they debut for WCW and they're starting the NWO and they're hot, and you get that era of those guys versus the New Age Outlaws at the top whenever they're headlining with DX and whatnot, I think you're going to have a hell of a matchup that's going to drive the people nuts. And I think the winner of that match would end up being the Outsiders.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that too. Was there another point you were going to make before I cut you off with that?
No, I was just going to say, yes, you're right. I was going to say one thing. I'm going to compliment Bubba right now. So you guys can get this whole compliment. Bubba was very, very good at taking care of the Dudleys and protecting the Dudleys. A lot of people talk about Bubba being selfish. And there are times in wrestling where you do need to be selfish and you do need to take care of yourself and your partner and your tag team. I would say probably myself and Jeff, we have been too unselfish in many instances. And sometimes it has bit us in the ass, but it's just kind of who we are when it comes down to it. But at the end of the day, Bubba was always smart because he always protected things. Like I'll never forget in one of the TLC matches we had, or it could have been the triple threat triangle ladder match. Whenever they gave Christian the 3D, like Bubba constantly actively thought like he has to be down for so long before he gets back up and does something because this finish has to be protected. And he's not wrong. He's right in doing that in many, many ways. And a lot of people have kind of gotten away from that. But that is one thing that is a very polarizing thing about Bubba, how protective he was of the Dudleys. But I'm cool with it, and I respect it, actually.
Certainly so. All right, let's move to the other side of the bracket, Matt. We got number 2 Briscoes versus number 15 Arn and Tully. This is a tight one. This is a tough one. I was really, really struggling with this one, but I had a team. I said it last week. To me, like Arn and Tully, their stuff holds up as well today as it did back then. And it's...
yeah. If you interjected them in a match from 1988 or 1989 that's happening in 2024, it still holds up, right?
Very much so.
So it is. It tugs at my heartstrings too because I loved Arn and Tully. I loved them as a team. They were like one of the teams that you look to for inspiration, especially as a heel team. And then the Briscoes, obviously, you know, I've been close with them for a long time, and I've got lots of love for the Briscoes. So this one is a nail biter for me.
Who do you think won?
I am going to have to go with the BBs, with Arn and Tully in this one, and by a close margin.
You think the Briscoes lost to Arn and Tully here? You think the Brain Busters come out on top?
I think so.
This one had a margin of 58.3% to 41.7%.
Close again.
Pretty close. This one ultimately separated by about 175, 200 votes or so.
Mm-hmm.
The winner of the Briscoes versus the Brain Busters, and moving on to the Extreme 8, the Briscoes.
Okay, shit, hell, reach for the sky, boy. All right, okay, I'm okay with that. I didn't expect that, but I'm okay with that.
I love the Briscoes. I could watch Briscoes matches all the time. And again, I respect the voices of the Extreme Life faithful. I'm grateful for everyone who participated. Here's another one I think they got wrong. I think the Brainbusters, Arn and Tully, whatever you want to call them, are not just innovators. Like I said, I think their work holds up today. You could pair them with anyone today, it would still work. Arn is one of the most influential wrestling minds ever. Mm-hmm. And for as great as the Briscoes were, and they were fantastic, just the influence of Arn and Tully with the Horsemen and everything, to me, they were pretty clear winners in this one. And the Briscoes, however, are the ones moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It is interesting, you know, and I'm not mad. Thank you, everyone who reached out and voted, who were very interactive on this. Thank you. We hope to get more votes the next round as this thing continues. I hope it gets bigger and bigger and snowballs. But yeah, man, it's cool. Once again, as I said, this is one that really tore at my heartstrings because I kind of want both teams to move on and move ahead. And I would have guessed Arn and Tully, but if the people want the Briscoes, they get the Briscoes, and the Briscoes move on to the next round. And I respect it.
And Josh has a good point here. He says it's been a mix of new and old school so far. He says he's surprised. And I'm glad that it is, because then we can't sit here and say, oh, it was skewed towards nostalgia or it's skewed towards recency bias. We are getting a blend here of new and old school.
It is, yeah. It is.
And that's a good thing.
I mean, because you can say, you know, this is a more modern thing because the Briscoes won. And you look at Edge and Christian, modern stuff didn't win in that one. Edge and Christian, nostalgia won, you know, looking back 20 years ago.
Right. So they are going to be facing the winners of the Hart Foundation, the number 7 seed, and the number 10 Midnight Express. This matchup. I was pretty confident who was going to win this one.
Yeah.
Who would you think was going to come out on top?
I think the Vegematic is going to get a heart attack, and I'm going with the Hart Foundation. Oh my God, Dax has to be tore out of shit about this match, right? These are his 2 favorite teams. Or, you know, Brett is, you know, obviously he's a huge fan of Brett, you know, and he loves the Midnight Express. And I respect that. He would be torn in this one. I mean, I think him trying to vote, or him trying to pick a winner in this one is like me trying to pick a winner in Arn and Tully versus the Briscoes. It's hard to do.
Well, our viewers did not have a hard time picking a winner for this one because this was a blowout. 76.9% of the vote to 23.1%. So not a difficult decision for them. Moving on to face the Briscoes in the Extreme 8, the Hart Foundation.
Okay, look at there. There we go.
76.9% of the vote. So we got the Hart Foundation versus the Briscoes. That's a hell of a matchup, isn't it?
It is. That is a hell of a matchup. Imagine seeing that Prime Briscoes versus Prime Hart Foundation. Just a dream match on so many levels. Great.
Josh Henny's saying the Harts beat the Briscoes in his mind.
Yeah. I almost feel like, because I feel like the Hart Foundation, sometimes people don't look at them as great of a tag team as maybe they really were, because Brett left and achieved all this major single success, and Anvil didn't do as much. He just kind of, he teamed with Owen later, and he was, he never became as big of a star as Brett did, obviously, as a singles. But when you look at the Briscoes, they are just known for being this solid tag team. I feel like if the Briscoes were able to beat Arn and Tully, then the Hart Foundation better watch out, because I think they can beat the Hart Foundation too.
I am in complete agreement with you on that. If they were able to pull off that one over on and Tully. Yeah, Anvil and Brett were such a great combination, because, Brett was the work guy and Anvil was a little more the meteor guy who could hit the power moves and stuff. And that's always an easy dynamic for a successful tag team, isn't it?
Yeah, also they played off each other really well as far as entertainment goes. Anvil had the deal where he'd strictly go to in the laugh, and the promos, they played off each other really well, because they were both very different, but they gelled together well. And sometimes those type of tag teams really work good together.
That they certainly do, Matt Hardy. That they certainly do. That gets us now to our last two matchups, the other side of this bracket. And let's start with your matchup. The number 3 Hardy Boys versus the number 14 Fabulous Freebirds. Feeling a little nervous here?
Yes.
Well,
I'm on the edge of my seat to all this shit, John.
We've seen this match in real life.
We have.
You got a chance to actually have it, but it would have been cool to see it in both of your primes.
Yes.
To see those two teams match up. And I know you have nothing but respect for the Freebirds, but there's nothing you'd rather happen here than beat them decidingly. And with 87.9% of the vote to 12.1%, which I believe was our biggest blowout, the Hardy Boys are moving on.
Well, hell.
Not even sweating. 87%.
Bad Street Atlanta, GA. Bad Street Atlanta, GA.
You want to put over your opponent here on the way out?
Yeah, I'll put over the opponent. Really hard in there. We were very lucky to overcome Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Bam Bam Gordy. It was a hell of a matchup. You know what I mean? I got to tell you, I got lots of love, got lots of respect for them. And they almost had us there on a couple of occasions. Terry Bam Bam Gordy is the baddest man I have ever been in the ring with. Michael Hayes is one of the smartest men I've ever been in the ring with, and we were just lucky to be able to overcome them today.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be a little bias considering this is your podcast. However,
correct. Correct.
Definitely, pardon me, it definitely lends itself to a great match that I would have loved to have seen in your primes. So you are moving on. And you are going to be battling the winner of another matchup that was pretty closely contested and had a lot of chatter from people. The number 6 New Day versus the number 11 Steiners. Scott and Rick. Two very different teams. Very different teams.
Very different.
Two different eras. Mostly different companies. The Steiners, Trailblazers as a ground and pound tag team, just two brutes who could out wrestle anyone.
And also, too, Scott Steiner was breaking out those Frankensteiners, which was like crazy and unprecedented at that time, especially with a big jacked up guy like him. Like,
very much so. You compare them to the New Day, who are like the pinnacle of sports entertainment when it comes to tag team wrestling. And all three great wrestlers individually in their own right. Just record breakers in WWE. Scott Steiner became a big time main eventer in WCW. Who do you think came out on top here?
I got to stick with the Steiners. I feel like people are going to go for the Steiners in this. when it's all said and done at the end of the day. And once again, this is another one that is very tough to choose because I love I love both teams in theory. Like we grew up big fans of the Stunners. New Day, I adore those guys. All great human beings, great wrestlers, and a tremendous trailblazing tag team that really are great representation too for all of the young black people that like wrestling and whatnot. The New Day were such groundbreakers in that capacity. But I feel like when you have people voting, I feel like the nostalgia of the Steiners is going to overcome the New Day in this particular instance.
Well,
and I may be wrong.
60.4% to 39.6%. Your opponents in the Extreme 8, the number 6 seeded New Day.
Oh, look at that. All
it's
right.
a New Day. Yes, it is. And they are facing the Hardys in the Extreme
all right, cool.
8.
Good
Matt,
deal.
That's going to be a tough one for you guys.
See, now we could have ran this back right after we came out and returned at WrestleMania 33, and they gave us the big intro, right? Where they were the red herring. They went and they got dressed as they were the host. We should have just said, like, after we won the titles, we could have gotten into a heated rivalry. Because you know what? We could have been in that tag match, but we allowed you that moment. And then it kind of built up in intensity and a heated rivalry, and we could have really got to that. We could have seen the Hardys versus the New Day. They'd been a hell of a contest.
Kofi's got a pretty good Jeff juke, as we saw at WrestleMania 17. So there should be a juke off at some point in that feud. Man, what a great match this would be in both of your primes here. I mean, just incredible athleticism, willingness to do whatever, great character. I know that's what really appeals to you more than anything about a matchup like this. You have great character wrestling.
Yeah, no, bro, give me a wrestler that has a lot of character, and that butters my biscuits, as they say in the South. You know what I mean? That is something that I love because it gives you so much to work with when it comes into context within a match.
We have trombones involved. And, I mean, really, we could push the limits here on a match like this.
Indeed.
What would be the combo of the New Day you'd like to go against in theory?
I would say we go against Kofi and Big E.
I would agree. I think that's one of the best combinations that the New Day brings to the table is Kofi and Big E, 2 WWE champions. So that's pretty tough to go against there, Matt. Who do you think the fans are going to go with here? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. This is definitely going to be a bigger challenge than the Fabulous Freebirds, in my opinion. We're going to go in there. We're going to go in there with our guns up, and the Hardys were doing that before Bullet Club Gold ever was. But we're going to go in there with our guns up. We're going to go in there willing to take any risk to win, and we are hoping to win this at the end of the night.
Okay, so our matchups again, Matt Hardy, as we go into this, they are number 1 Road Warriors squaring off against number 8 Edge and Christian, number 5 Young Bucks going against the number 13 Dudleys, the number 2 Briscoes going against the number 7 Hart Foundation, and the number 3 Hardys against the number 6 New Day. All randomized seating, of course. This is a really, really loaded Elite 8 here, the Extreme 8. Give me your predictions, Matt. Which 4 teams do you think are going to be moving on to the Final 4 here?
What 4 teams are going to be going to the Fatal 4?
Yes. Fatal 4.
The Fatal 4. Oh boy. I mean, Edge and Christian and the Road Warriors, it's a toss-up once again. But I feel like Edge and Christian have a good opportunity of defeating the Road Warriors, in this day and age, especially because they were able to defeat the Usos like they did. The next
Young
match,
Bucks and the Dudleys.
Yes, the Bucks and the Dudleys. Ooh, that's once again a toss-up. I can see that going either way. I think it's going to be hard to vote against the Dudleys for the people that would vote in this, especially the people that listen to this podcast. So I could see Edge and Christian Dudley's rematch coming up in the semifinals.
I would agree with that. Then we got the Briscoes and Hart Foundation.
With the Briscoes and Hart Foundation, I mean, I think if the Briscoes can get by Arn and Tully, I think they can get past the Hart Foundation. So I'm going to say the Briscoes in that.
And then the Hardys and New Day.
I am going to go with the Hardys just because I am one of the Hardys and I have to be confident and I have to try and do my best to win whatever encounter I'm in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a hell of a fatal four you're looking at. If we get to what my predictions would be, which are the Hardys versus the Briscoes, a match that's happened before. And then on the other side of the brackets, you would have ENC versus the Dudleys. That's very, very interesting. You have all of the TLC forefathers in there and then the greatest tag team in Ring of Honor history.
I think that that's probably how this is going to play out. I wouldn't be surprised if the Hart Foundation put up a good fight here because people have a lot of nostalgia and respect for Bret Hart. So yeah. I'm curious if that, especially with how much they beat the Midnight Express by. I mean, they crushed them.
Right.
So I'm curious to see. And Road Warriors will be tough for Edge and Christian just because of the nostalgia factor alone. But yeah, man, this is a hell of an Extreme 8 that we are looking at here.
It is. And I'm not going to lie. I would love to see a Road Warriors versus Young Bucks semifinal 2 in the final Fatal 4. That'd be a hell of a contest too.
I could be down with that.
Who knows?
I could be down with that. Coach Rose is saying Matt Hardy has heat in Mexico. That's where he is right now.
I have big heat in Mexico. Thank you. They love me. They love me in Tijuana.
There you go. He's watching us from a cruise. Wow. Okay. So here's the deal, guys. The voting is going to open up. If it may even be open by the time that this podcast drops on ad-free shows. So make sure you get those votes in. Gonna be a hell of an Extreme 8, that's for sure. Cannot wait to see which teams move on. I'm having a great time with these episodes, Matt. This is super fun breaking these matchups down.
Very much so.
How you feeling going into this, man? A little nervous, New Day?
Yeah, of course, man. You know, especially anytime you're in there and you're part of the team and, you know, you're one of those legacy guys. Yeah, it's always a little nervous, especially when you're up against, you know, some future icons like the New Day.
Certainly so. Well, I want to remind everyone here a few things before we part ways on this episode. You can help us out. Head on over to advertisewithhardy.com. Promote your business to the extreme. Get it out in front of thousands of listeners every single week here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, wherever you get your podcasts. And we want to see you live, as you heard Matt talk about earlier in this podcast. We are coming to WrestleCon April 5th. That's a Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Matt, I just saw The Undertaker is doing a live show the day before. Tickets are like $225. Come see Matt Hardy talk about the TLC years for $25 at the Sheraton Philadelphia downtown. Going to be a hell of a time, isn't it?
It's going to be a hell of a time. And we're trying to give people discounts because we know there's a lot of money that you're going to have to spend to partake in this WrestleMania weekend. And we want you to come see our show. That's why we are making it the best value in all of Philadelphia.
Yeah, maybe we'll be talking about some of the matchups in the GOAT on that live edition of the Extreme Life. And then, of course, right after that, we're heading over to the world-famous Monster Factory across the river. That is going to be a 9 p.m. start time, free for all Monster Factory members, $15 for anyone else in the pro wrestling industry. This is not open to fans, but if you're a wrestler, a manager, promoter, commentator, whatever you may be, just $15. Hit up John Alba SFC, JONALBA SFC at gmail.com. Going to be a great time.
And one thing I do want to say to the top guys and the top gals that are on here watching us live as we tape this, you are going to see this later on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. It's going to be released as a podcast down the road.
Going to be great. Really excited for all those shows. Anything else you want to add, my friend?
No, man, this has been so much fun. You know, there were some surprises on my end anyway, and I think some surprises in the tournaments. Really fun. This is a fun concept, and I'm looking forward to finishing it up the next couple weeks.
Better than the tit?
Might be better than the tit. Might be better than the tit.
I don't know. I mean, not a lot
it depends on which one you're specifically talking
about.
Not
a lot of things are better than the tit.
You know, it just really depends on which one you're talking about.
Well, the New Day are more, you know, they're into the booty rather than the tit, as they've proclaimed. They eat their booty. I mean, do you eat your bootios every morning? Like,
I'm not a big cereal guy. No.
Okay, so you're not eating the bootios. Gotcha.
Not eating the bootios.
Not eating them. Got it. Okay. Well,
maybe Kellogg's might say eat the bootios. You know, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Who knows?
Oh, fun stuff. Thank you to everyone who's watched with us here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. The words have been spoken. We will see you next time.
Dudley!